Close your eyes, give me your hand, darling. Do you feel my heart?
What's going on, everyone? I'm Jaren, and today we are talking about Speak No Evil. This story follows an American family who is invited for a quiet weekend in the countryside by another family that they met on vacation, only to soon realize that as the weekend progresses, there is a dark side to the family who invited them. I am so relieved that this movie finally got released. Now I can go to the theater and not have to worry about seeing this trailer for the millionth time. I'm not sure if everyone else felt the same way I did, but just wherever I went, it was just as cursed as that Fall Guy trailer, where no matter how many different versions of the trailer that they made, no matter what movie I was going to see, I couldn't escape this one. Plus, I felt like I was seeing the whole movie play out in different versions of the marketing. If I'm going to be honest, I was not planning on seeing this movie. It's not that I had anything better to watch, it's just that I was a little burnt out from the blockbuster slate, and with all the movies that were coming out from the beginning of September and on, I just wasn't in a rush to book anything in advance. Alas, we have that Americanized remake to the original Danish horror film that came out in 2022. The funny thing about that is, they speak English in that movie, they just have a little bit of a thicker accent, so you're gonna put on the subtitles anyway, and really, why do we need the American remake right away? What justifies its existence to where I shouldn't just go out and search for that original film instead? To be fair, I do not have the streaming platforms of Shudder or AMC Plus, so I actually did not watch that original movie. The film communities that I follow, whether that would be on Instagram or YouTube, they have reviewed and discussed this film ad nauseum, the 2022 version, and it got down to the point where they've discussed and really broke down a lot of the twists and turns and even spoiled the ending for me. So I can only imagine that a lot of the people who watched this for the very first time were really just shocked and awed by that movie. And with that experience taken away from me, I had no desire and no drive to watch that original film. With that being said, what I've decided to share about the remake will be completely on its own merit instead of comparing and contrasting with that original film. Now, with both movies and both trailers kind of hugging it close to the similar idea of what the audience could expect, I wasn't expecting anything much from this story. And I think Blumhouse has been in a rut lately, especially with their attitude of throw everything against the wall and see if it sticks. Just hasn't been the year, hasn't been the right slate. Luckily for them, this is by far the best Blumhouse movie to ever come out this year. And that might not be saying much considering the other releases that did come out this year, but considering the context into the original source material, I was not expecting, but they did deliver a gravitas scale in camera work, tension building, and impeccable performances by each and every cast member. Starting out with the positives, once I found out that James Watkins was taking on directing reins for this remake, I knew there was going to be a significant credibility into what we get to see on screen. Now, for those of you who don't know who James Watkins is, he has brought us horror thrillers such as Eden Lake and The Woman in Black. He even got to work with the Tafdrup brothers, who gave us that original film by repurposing and recontextualizing the script for audiences who have not seen the original film and is going to see it for the very first time on the big screen. Apart from pacing the suspense and crafting some breathtaking cinematography, the backdrops of Tuscany in the beginning and for majority of the runtime being in Finn really brought out that foreign atmosphere, that sense of being far from home, out of your comfort zone, and out of control. We got Mackenzie Davis, who plays Louise, and she is more of the audience's anchor in which you experience most of the narrative through. And there's a lot of awkward and uncomfortable situations that her and her husband, especially their daughter, kind of find themselves cornered into, especially with this other family that invited them. And a lot of the times they're trying to play things off really cool. They think that it's not so much of a big deal, but time and time again, not trying to come off as privileged or rude, there's so many red flags that you as the audience would probably early on draw the line and say enough is enough. One example is in the trailer where James McAvoy decides to feed Mackenzie Davis a piece of roasted duck, but with them going through all the trouble, she didn't want to be vocal, even though she's mentioned earlier that she was vegetarian. And the moments that she does vocalize a lot of her concerns and frustrations, it is triumphant. It does push the buttons and boundaries of a parent, and you really root for her and champion her for her decisions when she decides to stand up for herself and call bullshit. James McAvoy is our leading antagonist, Patty. His demeanor comes off very animated and charming. He's the kind of guy that you can click with and have a beer with. But as the story progresses, he slowly transforms into that one friend that you've become embarrassed by and uncomfortable with. He says a lot of things, does a lot of things that are questionable and very controversial that you have just enough in common to enjoy their presence, but not enough to really care if you keep in touch with them or not. Wow, that just got personal. And by the time we get to that third act reveal, McAvoy fully unleashes the beast like he stepped off the set of Split. He is just a terrifying and unhinged force, both cunning and brute. Somebody give McAvoy an Oscar already, because with that crooked smile, those crocodile tears, and oh man, just being buff for no reason at all. I mean, it's not like the character required to be physically fit, but he was anyway. He just gave this role everything. Considering the key plot points of that original Danish film that were spoiled for me in writing, I did notice the significant differences when it came to the American iteration. One being that I was actually relieved that the elements of child abuse was very much toned down, just that the implications and behavior were just as effective. Also, this might divide a lot of fans, but what they were able to change for the third act, I was actually satisfied with. I know that might divide a lot of people, but with that being said, it all amounts to the final 20 minutes, which results into a siege sequence, which really reminded me of that movie Fear with Mark Wahlberg and The Last House on the Left. That whole third act really won me over and had me biting my nails at the edge of my seat. Getting into my more mixed opinions, now due to the social commentary and the theme that this film is trying to convey, there are red flags after red flags, which pushes the boundaries and safety of our main family and possibly the tolerance of the audience. This is a horror thriller, so they are going to make choices that move the plot along instead of making the smarter decisions. There are frequent moments where you just want to jump out at the screen, grab the family by the ears, and yell at them for stop being so stupid and run for the fucking hills. Now, if that happened, we wouldn't have a movie. The catalyst that brought our families together, as well as causing the divide later on in the movie, was the American Girl's stuffed rabbit. That darn stupid stuffed rabbit was so frustrating. That thing should have just been left behind or just freaking thrown away. If that was a local family, that little girl would just be tough loved, tough titty, fucking, you're not getting another one till Christmas. But I guess, they did their best to flush things out, to give a little bit more context into justifying the means for their actions for it, I guess. Getting into my biggest negative of this entire movie, Scoot McNairy as Ben, aka Louise's husband. I understand the pressure that he was put up against, which resulted him being the morally gray character, trying to keep things at an even keel without spiraling into a position that he would have no control over. And as a father, as a husband, as a protector of his own family, he was a fucking wet rag. Ben is given countless opportunities at redemption, and he always shits the bed. Just like the two main characters in The Stranger Chapter 1, you are still rooting for them to turn the tables around no matter how late into the movie you are, and that moment never comes. It was really hard to sympathize with him when things weren't going his way, and I swear Louise pretty much carried him throughout the whole third act. Just a damn shame. Overall, I forgot to mention that Aisling Françoise and the two other kids also delivered exceptional performances. I think the horror hound in me just wanted the third act to just get a little more brutal and bloody. It was already rated R, so why not give it to us anyway? I want my carnage candy. Also, I'm taking back the genres that I used to describe this film. This one was more of a dark comedy / thriller. I can fully vouch that this movie is not as cold and bleak as that original film. It merits its own existence as a remake, and I think that I really enjoyed this movie much more than I was expecting. Remember, kids, don't be a pushover, speak up, set boundaries, and don't be a bitch when someone has got you by the tongue. Yes, pun intended. Well, alright guys, that's all I got to share about that movie. Go ahead and check it out. It's number 2 at the box office. Thank you guys again for taking some time out of your day to hear me talk some movies. Look forward to more reviews. I am Jaren Ugbanawag, and I will see you guys at the theater. Take care.
Do